There are projects and gigs where you don't have to do a lot of the finishing work yourself. Those are the good ones, because then we don't have to know how to do sound or color at all. Somebody else does it and does it much better than us. Now, a lot of the sound, graphics, and color stuff that I've taught you is really, really good to have as sort of like a directorial suggestion, right? Like, if you're working with a bigger team and there's going to be a professional colorist or a professional sound mixer, then you don't have to get it right for it to be in its finished form for the audience. But you as the editor or the director giving direction to you may want to make clips be a certain way so that we remember that we want it that way, so that the sound mixer will know that we're doing it that way. So if you add reverb to a sound effect, for example, the sound mixer will probably remove your reverb and they'll spend some time making the reverb work well. Or they might even just pick a different sound effect that already has reverb baked into it. But by you adding the reverb to begin with, you made a suggestion that then helped the other specialists do their jobs better and know what the director was looking for. To be honest, having simply a rudimentary understanding of color and motion graphics and sound is actually a lot more powerful than you think it is. And some editors don't go that far, and that will help you stand out a little bit to do those little directorial things, even if they're not polished and finished, right? A lot of the job as an editor, at least before the cut is locked, is making suggestions, doing things in their rudimentary form to show how it could be, right? So now we're on a gig where you don't have to do the finishing. You've locked the cut, and now you're being hired as the finishing editor. So you're not coloring, you're not doing sound, but you're the editor compiling all of this stuff. The sound guy does not do sound in Premiere. He has software that is much more robust, so he needs access to the sound files. The colorist might color in Premiere, but probably he's going to be coloring in a more professional coloring software. He also needs access to the files. So we're going to talk through some of the things that you're going to need to know in order to send the project to the specialists and then to receive things from them. So the first thing that you're going to want to do before you send stuff off to specialists is you want to understand where everything is. This right here is a really bad example. This is a project that should not have been sent to specialists yet. You want to compress everything down to as few vertical layers as possible. Now, you can use as many layers as you want as you're editing, but when the cut is locked and you're ready to send it off, we need to simplify it. So we want as few layers as possible. So we take the baseline of everything and we move them down. So all of this stuff should be farther down. It should be on the lowest layer possible. If there's multiple things, then they have to stack on top of each other, and that's fine. But we want as few of those as possible. You do this with the audio as well. We'll try to break it down by category so that we understand what each one is. So, for example, this would be dialogue 1. You can see we have 1, 2, 3 dialogue tracks, and often people are overlapping in their conversation, so we're probably going to have 6 tracks of dialogue. So we're going to name these dialogue 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we're going to compress the project down to its smallest form. So with video, it's as compressed as it can possibly be. There's as few tracks as possible, but also nothing's mixed. With both the audio and the video, you don't want to mix things up. So, for example, all of your motion graphics should be in separate tracks from what was captured with the camera. All of your sound effects should be in separated tracks from your dialogue. Even if there's space in the dialogue track to place the sound effect, you don't want to do that. We want our own sound effect track, our own music track, so that everything is separated and clearly understandable. This is super helpful when you're dealing with really long timelines and literally thousands of individual media clips, because you and the specialists need to understand where everything is. We've simplified our timeline so that we all understand what it is and what it looks like. Now we're going to send stuff off to the individual specialists. So sometimes you're literally just sending the Premiere Pro project file to the colorist. Sometimes a colorist will ask for what's called an XML. An XML is basically like a massive, gross spit out of all of the code that another program can then read to reconstruct the timeline. For example, if you're trying to get this timeline into Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro cannot read Adobe, but it can read cuts of clips. So you export an XML. Basically, it'll include like all of the junk that this timeline is doing, right? It will say this clip from this root folder is being started at this time code and being ended at this time code, and it's playing at this time code in the video, and it's playing back at this many frames per second. It includes like a breakdown of everything that every single clip is doing in text format. And then there are programs to interpret XMLs from one program to another. You may need to go to File, Export, Final Cut Pro XML. This one is just baked into Premiere. It knows what it's doing. There's not a lot of options. That's just what it is. Sound mixers are going to be working in audio-specific software, and their software usually has two formats. I've sent two main file formats to sound guys. Go to File, Export again. I've sent OMFs and I've sent AAFs. Now, I've never worked in the sound mixing side. I've never opened an AAF or an OMF. So I don't even know exactly all of the differences, but I'm going to teach you what you need to know about exporting both of these so that your sound guys are happy with you. So an OMF first. So first of all, ask your sound guy, what kind of file extension do they want? Ask them what they want, OMF or AAF. So our sound guy wants an OMF. So let's OMF. So we're going to title it something. Usually you're going to want to follow the whole naming breakdown protocol and definitely at least include the date and the version number. If you're going back and forth a lot with specific feedback from the director, you're going to need to know every time it's updated. Now, usually the sample rate is just going to be the sample rate of the project. I think almost always it's 48,000 up to the sound guy, and bits per sample is also up to the sound guy. So ask them what sample rate and what beats per sample. Files. Now, what this is going to do is it's either going to embed all of the audio into the OMF file itself, or it's going to make a separate folder where it exports all of the sound files to. Because basically what it's doing, it's going to take all of the audio and extract them from their various root folders and put them all into one neat, tidy package so that the sound guy is only getting the exact number of audio files that he needs to be working with. So the OMF will either hold in itself or in a folder next to it all of the audio files that are being used in the timeline, and then all of the data related to the timeline, kind of like the XML, so that the audio guy's software can replicate it in terms of the time code and where every single clip sits, etc. You need to ask your audio guy, do they want a copy of the complete audio files, or do they want a trimmed audio file? What this means is this clip right here, it's 1 minute and 30 seconds long, but this is not playing back that entire clip. It's only playing back a portion of it. So when we're exporting the OMF files, do we want this entire thing exported, or do we just want the trimmed version? Just the section that we're actually using. So most of the time, what I have found that most sound guys want is they want a trimmed version of all the audio files. If we have 30 seconds of one take, but that take had 8 passes in it, we don't need a 20-minute audio file. We just need roughly those 30 seconds that are in the timeline. But we actually might want more than those 30 seconds, because what if there's audio transitions? What if there's smoothing that needs to happen? What if we change our minds in the edit and we add a few frames to the beginning or the end? We're going to want a little bit of flexibility. Handle frames are the frames before and after the in and out points on the timeline that we're going to add to the trim. If we select trim audio files, handle frames 24, what will happen is the software will go to the endpoint of where our audio clip starts in our timeline. It will go 24 frames earlier and then start the render, and then it will end the render 24 frames after the out point, and that will be the clip that it copies, saves, and sends in the OMF. So that's what a handle frame is. That's what trimming audio files means. So that's OMF. The other one is an AAF, and this is very similar, but you just have a bit more options. Mixed down video means it's going to take all of the video and audio and put them all together into one track. Normally, you don't want that. Break out to mono. That's usually what we're going to want to do. This is going to give us all those same options that we had when we were exporting the OMF. This is going to allow us to pick our sample rate and our bits per sample. It's going to allow us to choose whether we want embedded or separate audio. It's going to allow us to choose our format, which is usually AIFF. And then we're going to be able to choose if we want the complete audio files or the trimmed files and what our handle frames are going to be. There are circumstances where you'll do an AAF and it'll just be a mix down and you won't need breakout to mono, but most of the time, if you're sending to a specialist who is doing sound design and audio mixing, they're going to want all of the individual files and they're going to want all of those individual audio files to show up in order in the timeline, and they're going to want handles on all of those clips. And so this is how they're going to want it to look. AAF and OMF from our side, very similar. From the sound side, a little bit different, and I don't even understand them exactly. So you send these off to the sound designer. So when we break down the audio tracks, and we have dialogue, 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 sound effect, sound effect, sound effect, music, 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 what we're doing is we're making stems. In audio production, a stem is a discrete or grouped collection of audio sources mixed together. So basically what that means is we might have 6 or 10 dialogue tracks that we send in an OMF to the audio guy. He will send us one dialogue stem back, and it will be a mix down of all of the dialogue. Or he may send a stem per character. It kind of depends on the needs of the production, the needs of you as an editor, and how the audio guy wants to do it. But usually, you'll send dozens of audio tracks. And then when the audio guy is done mixing everything, he will send you stems so that you can separate things to an extent if you need to, but things are a lot more locked down and mixed together. There's normally 3 stems that I can think of: dialogue, sound effects, and music. I think there might be another one sometimes, but I can't remember what it is. What you'll do at that point is you will mute all of the individual tracks, and you will just lay those stems at the very bottom and make sure that they're synchronized with the timeline. So for this short film, we didn't have time for sound exports, so we did our sound mixing in Premiere, and we did not organize as we could, because again, this was a 48-hour film. Oftentimes, a colorist will export clips individually, so that you're laying a bunch of clips in a layer over top of your original edit. This one color track is basically just an export of the video. It doesn't normally look exactly like this, but that was what we had to do because we were crunched for time. We couldn't figure out how to move all of our colored clips back from the software into Premiere, and so this was our last resort trying to get the film finished within an hour before the deadline. But your job as the finishing editor, once you've sent stuff out, will be then to receive from the different specialists and apply it where it goes, and make sure that everything gets all together in a tidy little neat package. And your stems will go underneath, and they will be soloed so that everything else is muted, and your colored clips will go on top so that nothing else is being shown underneath.